to the I-24 News National Security Podcast in partnership with INSS, the Institute for National Security Studies. I'm your host, Nicole Zedeck. Each week, we are bringing you in-depth discussions with expert analysts on some of the most pressing national security challenges facing Israel today. So, let's get started. Today, we are talking about Israel's neighbor, Egypt. The country has been navigating a delicate balance between mediating the conflict in Gaza and safeguarding its own internal stability, all while maintaining its regional influence. Egypt is a historic peace partner to Israel and a key player in Arab diplomacy, allowing Cairo to really operate behind the scenes, leveraging its strategic geographic location, diplomatic ties, and deep regional experience. Cairo's quiet diplomacy carries enormous weight. But still, the economic fallout from disruptions in the Suez Canal, the rise of domestic tensions, and conflicting regional priorities all add many layers of complexity to its role. Egypt's silent power approach isn't just about avoiding conflict, it's about crafting a long-term vision for regional stability. In today's episode, we'll explore Egypt's role as a mediator in the Gaza conflict, its strategy for the day after, and what it sees for the future of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Can Egypt bridge the gap between Israel's military objectives and regional diplomacy? How important for Israel is the peace treaty with Egypt? Well, there is no better person to answer these pressing questions than Ambassador Amira Oron, former Israeli ambassador to Egypt and currently a senior researcher at the Institute for National Security Studies. Ambassador Oron, thank you for being with us on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
When it comes to Egypt, Egypt has long positioned itself as really a key stronghold in the Middle East, even a key mediator in many of the Middle East conflicts that we've seen for decades at this point. And so it really does provide a unique opportunity, it seems, and a unique role in providing a balance between both the Palestinian and the Israeli voices, being able to engage with both of these voices. How has Egypt positioned itself in this way?
I think this is the right description. First of all, I think we have to look at Egypt as a key player in the region, no matter what, no matter when. And because of the peace agreement between Israel and Egypt, that is celebrating already 46 years, Egypt has an advantage that other countries don't have. And also Egypt, because of its geography and bordering with Gaza Strip, it makes Egypt even more important and more capable of going between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And they are doing so, as you said, for the last decade or so. They were always there. Actually, from Oslo Agreement, we saw different discussions and agreements. Even there is one agreement that is called Cairo Agreement between us and the Palestinians. And they were supporting the discussions and the understandings, the different kind of understandings that were evolved between the Palestinians and the Israelis through the years. Of course, we see them more when there is escalation. And again, I'm not talking about the war yet. Yeah. We saw the escalations, the different rounds of violence between us, Israel, and the Palestinians, Hamas. And always Egypt was serving the de-escalation process, trying to reach to an agreement, which was quite successful, I have to say. Egypt has the people that are responsible on dealing with this issue are very experienced people from the different security organizations inside Egypt, and also the diplomats. So all in all, if we can look in a historical perspective, Egypt is always involved, and it's always matter to her what is going on with the Palestinian issue. Another thing that I think I should stress, and sometimes Israelis tend to forget, when Sadat came to visit Israel on November 1977, and he gave a speech in the Knesset, he was talking also on the Palestinian issue, the Palestinian problem, he even said, and he was talking about the solution, which is a political solution, a Palestinian state. So actually, always this was the perspective or the stand, the point of view of Egypt regarding our conflict with the Palestinians. And again, they were always involved in that.
Well, you mentioned all of the different players at hand that work to de-escalate any of these conflicts. In your experience, actually working with these players and many of these diplomats, how was your experience engaging with them?
Very professional people. They have a lot of knowledge. Some of them lived in Gaza, in Ramallah. You know, because of the long years of violence between us and the Palestinians, we actually don't see each other that much. Although Ramallah is so close to Jerusalem, we cannot visit Ramallah. And of course, not to talk about Gaza, even before Hamas took the control over there. So, but they are there. They are always there. They are serving there. They are working with the different Palestinian organizations, not just with the PA, not just with Hamas. So they really have a very good view about what is going on the Palestinian camp. Unlike other countries that want to be part of what is going on here now. And I think they lack the knowledge and the perspective. Something else that is extremely important to understand when we talk about the Egyptians, for them, stability is the number one aim. This is their goal. And I'm talking about regional stability. They believe that each country should live next to the other country, all the different countries that are here in the Middle East, in stability and security. And I think this perspective is very important to us. They are not dealing with ideology, with Islam, with political Islam, unlike other players like Qatar, like Turkey. So I think for us as Israelis, and I believe we want to get to a point where there will be no more violence between us and the Palestinians, I think Egypt is a very good partner.
Stability, that's what you're talking about right now.
It's the main key word for them.
Well, and over the past year and 3 months at this point, the region has been anything but stable. And so I think it's important to now talk about Egypt's reaction to the October 7th massacre right across its border. What were we hearing from the Egyptian government?
On the day itself, on October 7, I think they were overwhelmed and they couldn't believe their eyes, what they saw, and the reports started to come in. And they totally rejected it, but not publicly. And here is the point, and this is a problem for us. And this is a problem, and I will elaborate about it, that goes with us through the years, our peace relations with Egypt. There is not much talk about Israel, and there is not much talk about the culture of peace, and really accepting the idea of Israelis living here in the region. They accept the idea of the peace and the peace agreement, but they don't like Israelis. So on October 7, they were shocked. They were shocked because they are Muslims. Many of them are very religious people, and it's totally against their belief. What happened to civilians, we know what happened on October 7. But 2 days later, because after the reaction of Israel and we started to attack Gaza, they were completely with the Palestinians and with the Palestinian cause. And until now, usually the average Egyptian is not seeing anything, any report about Israel. They will only show what is going on in Gaza. And it's very hard. Very hard images, very hard reports are getting out of it. But it goes back to what I've just said about Sadat. The Egyptian people, not just as government, support the Palestinian people. They are brothers, they are Arabs like them, and they deserve to have their rights, which means a Palestinian state.
So you're talking about this quiet diplomacy, this backdoor diplomacy also that Egypt takes a major role in. But throughout the course of the war, we've also seen them take more front and center stage when it comes to de-escalating the conflict in Gaza, hostage negotiations, and a ceasefire. We continue to see Egypt being this key mediator because, as you mentioned, some of the other Arab countries don't have any of the other players, including Israel mainly, their interests at hand. But has Egypt had Israel's interests at hand when it comes to the hostage negotiations and ceasefire talks in Gaza?
They totally understand that in order to get to a ceasefire, the hostages should be back. Israel is talking about the hostages. Egypt is talking about ceasefire. Egypt is talking about ceasefire because Egypt was affected severely by the war. Economically, we can talk about the revenues that are not coming enough from the Suez Canal. We can talk about tourism that was affected. So definitely, for sure, Egypt wishes to see a ceasefire. And they know that a ceasefire will go only through bringing back the hostages. So they are trying to mediate. And I have to tell you, I'm impressed by their patience. Time and again, as you said, they are coming out with initiatives, with solutions. And again, they are used to it. We can also remind Gilad Shalit. I hate the word deal. They were there. They were a key player in that deal that, thanks God, brought Gilad Shalit back home.
So when we're talking about a ceasefire, then that means the day after, post-war Gaza. And so that's the main question right now, and it seems to be what's holding up any talks of a ceasefire or hostage release deal in Gaza. And so when it comes to Egypt, this is right across their border. This instability causes instability that could then push over into Egypt as well, into the Sinai Peninsula. And so when it comes to post-war Gaza, what does Egypt want to see? What type of governance there?
Absolutely. So when we talk about ceasefire, this is phase one. For them, they need, or they stress, they need to have a rehabilitation in Gaza, to build Gaza again. And they believe that they will have a role in that. And I think also from Israeli point of view, from Israeli interests, this is how it should be. Egypt wants and can play a role in that. But Egypt will not do one step unless they understand what is the end game. Do we talk about some kind of Palestinian entity, a Palestinian state? And for them, the only entity or the only factor that can play the game there is the PA, are the people from Ramallah. Definitely they would not love to see, or would not like to see, Hamas keeping on controlling this piece of land. Because Hamas, as we all know, is part of the Muslim Brotherhood movement. So, and for them, this is the enemy, because they do remember, they practice a very bad experience with the Muslim Brotherhood movement and this 1 year of the president of Morsi, that is a Muslim Brotherhood president, and what happened to Egypt because of that. So they definitely would not like to see such a possibility and this kind of future to Gaza. By the way, they are very concerned about what is going on now in Syria because of the same background, because of the same experience that they had 13, 12 years ago. So for us, as Israelis, again, the interest for the future of Gaza goes hand in hand with Egypt and with some kind of Egypt leadership.
And how does Egypt then possibly plan to make sure that whatever group then does come, whether it's some sort of a reformed Palestinian Authority, whether it's a technocratic government with both the PA and some version of Hamas, well, what's happened under Egypt's control is that through the Philadelphia corridor, through this border with both Egypt and Gaza, there's been smuggling, weapons smuggling, allowing these terror groups to arm themselves. As far as the Egyptian government, what has been their statement on something like this? Any ways that they can actually crack down on that and make sure that whatever governance does come next to Gaza cannot arm themselves as a terror group?
Absolutely. What was found in the tunnels, the piles of weapons, is something that we should ask ourselves and also ask the Egyptians, and we must work on it together. As far as I know, I'm not into it, but what I heard, I think the majority, as far as we understand, as I understand, the majority of weapons that was smuggled into Gaza was through Rafah crossing, probably. This thing should be checked, and we Israelis, Egyptians, and with other friends, definitely the Americans, should do much more and should do better in order to prevent it and to really block and lock this border. And I have to mention something else. When the Egyptians are faced with this question, which is a very legitimate one, they are saying, and we should remind it, they fought terribly the tunnels underneath Philadelphia corridor 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And they managed to block many of them. But after that, maybe the Palestinians, Hamas, managed maybe to dig more. Something happened. We should check it. And I think as I can tell, because of my knowledge about Egypt, as I know them, the borders and the sovereignty of their country is extremely important for them. So definitely they will join us in such an effort to make sure that we can block it.
Well, that's an interesting point, how crucial their own sovereignty is, because that's when we've seen some of these conflicts between Egypt and Israel erupt over this control over that area. And do you think that that is eroding some of the treaties or some of this relationship between Egypt and Israel since then?
Egypt didn't like the practice, what they saw when Israel decided to take control on the Rafah crossing and the Philadelphia corridor. Yes, they didn't like it at all. They said it, they declared it. They even warned us, don't do it before that, because they do believe that it should stay in Palestinian hands. And Palestinian hands, again, not meaning Hamas, but to put inside the PA. It didn't happen. Now they are again coming out with initiatives and suggestions how to change it, but also, and they took a step, they stopped activating the Rafah crossing from their side, as long as Israel is on the other side. They want again to bring back the reality where the Palestinians are on the other side, not the Hamas. Therefore, they are also offering what you've just mentioned, the technocrat, some kind of, I will not say government, but they say technocrat committee that will control Gaza and will be able to provide some kind of...
But Egypt itself does not want to be a part of this governance in Gaza at all.
Absolutely not. They will help, they will support, as I said, in phase 2, when we come to reconstruction, they will definitely do it. And they might be willing to play a role in some kind of a mission, let's call it peacekeeping mission. But as long as they know that by the end of the day, after 4 or 5 more years, we are talking about a political solution.
And this all comes to the greater question, beyond the current conflict in Gaza right now, but a 2-state solution. This is what Egypt continues to say they want to see. So when it comes to Egypt's broader vision for an end to the broader Israeli-Palestinian conflict, let's dig into that a little bit. What is Egypt's vision?
Absolutely, as you said, they think the 2-state solution is the only solution, where there will be a Palestinian state without an army. By the way, they have this experience. We know that there are limitations on the presence of Egyptian army in Sinai. So Israel and Egypt are already experiencing such an agreement. And there will be a Palestinian state. It will also be a relief for Jordan. And Jordan is extremely important for Egypt. They see in the situation the same way. They are totally coordinated. These are the peace countries for Israel, so it should be very important also to us. And they believe that after that, the potential of accepting Israel into the region and the potential of different economic, whatever kind of initiatives is limitless.
So expanding off of the peace treaties that they already have to see Israel truly a part of this greater vision for peace.
Absolutely, they do believe in that. By the way, we are doing some of this vision when it comes to energy. We have a good cooperation in energy issues. And we saw, thanks to Abraham agreements, and we saw the Negev Forum, which was amazing. I attended this forum. So many plans, and there are so many initiatives over there in different sectors that will make the lives of everybody much better in this region. So, and they see that, and sometimes they don't understand us. They are talking about, look at the potential and what you are not going to have or still losing Let us solve this problem.
And there is still so much more potential, even just between Egypt and Israel, when it comes to their own peace treaty, because we're coming on in just a few years, 50 years of this historic peace treaty, but many people describe it as going cold almost. There's still so much more potential to be built off of, but how do both Israel and Egypt go forward in that path?
Absolutely. Both Israel and Egypt look at it as a strategic asset. They are totally, both countries, I talked with both governments when I was the ambassador, are totally committed to the peace agreement. Thanks God for that. But again, the Egyptian people was left behind. We were talking about the peace culture and educating for more peace. Also from the Israeli side, we can do more. This is what is needed now. But from the strategic point of view, they are totally committed. By the way, this 15 months of war was a very hard test for our agreement. And thanks God, I don't want to say too much, but we are going through it. It's very difficult. We lost some assets that we had in Egypt when it comes to be able to be in touch and to have some kind of dialogue with different sectors of the Egyptian society. I believe it will come back if we will see some kind of political talk, negotiations, and the solution.
So would you say that the peace treaty is stronger or weaker to when you first became the Israeli ambassador to Egypt?
It's only weaker when it comes to the public opinion.
Inside Egypt?
Inside Egypt, absolutely. And by the way, I also sense here in Israel now, it became very fashionable, popular to attack Egypt and to blame Egypt. I think this is not right, both sides. We have to look at our interest, to look to our history. Thanks God, the wars between us are all over. And as you are mentioning, we are about to celebrate 50 years of peace. And this is how we should continue.
Do you think that Egypt can have influence over some of these other Arab regions and other Arab countries to actually join this peace initiative? Can they really influence them?
They influence them. And again, they are waiting for Israel to take the decision about the Palestinian issue. They believed all the time, even when after we had the Abraham Accords and the Negev Forum, that you cannot go far or high without solving the Palestinian issue. And I think on October 7, we realized that in a very bad way.
Certainly, it was a wake-up call to how important these treaties are. Ambassador Oron, we've been going on pretty big picture right now, but as we're wrapping up, I want to fire off a list of rapid-fire questions. I'm going to ask a quick question. Give me just the first response that comes to your mind, if you can. I know it's difficult, for politicians especially. How important for Israel is the peace treaty with Egypt?
Very much.
What about for Egypt, this alliance with Israel?
The same, very much.
Equal, you would equate them to.
Absolutely.
So then how fragile is the peace treaty right now?
Not fragile, but we need the support of the people, of the public.
Both the public in Israel?
In Israel less, but in Egypt definitely.
Do you think that Israel underestimates Egypt's regional importance?
I feel that it became again popular. I can understand that we look to the Gulf states and we normalized our relations definitely with the Emirates. But again, we have here our neighbors, Egypt and Jordan. We can never underestimate their importance.
Do you think that they are more important since they are right there on our borders, even than some of the maybe bigger powers such as Saudi Arabia?
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is why I was happy to be the ambassador in Cairo, because I totally believe that first of all, we have to reach to the point where we will be in peace with all our neighbors.
Do you think that this is a vision that can happen while this conflict is still ongoing?
No, it's impossible.
What would be your one recommendation, Ambassador Oron, to Israel going forward to really build off of this alliance with Egypt?
To keep on coordinating, talking, supporting Egypt's efforts for the ceasefire, not looking for other actors, and to be very careful with our declarations. Sometimes They are not helpful.
And do you think that going forward, the public opinion inside Egypt can be changed from the Egyptian government, or is that going to take some outside forces, specifically maybe this messaging from Israel?
I think there is work that they have to do from inside, educating the people, what is the image of Israel, how do you show Israel, what the people in Egypt know about Israel. We need a long time. And of course, also what is coming out from here can help or harm.
So leave us on one final message then, Ambassador Oron. Right now, are you hopeful, positive about the future of the relations between Israel and Egypt?
Absolutely. Absolutely hopeful. And we can achieve much more.
I agree that we can achieve much more, especially with all of the insight that you have been able to provide for us on the podcast today. Ambassador Amira Oron, thank you for breaking down all of the delicate intricacies when it truly comes to this growing and evolving relationship with Egypt and Israel. And let's hope that that relationship only continues to evolve more because, as you continue to reiterate, it is such a crucial relationship to the entire region. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, that is all we have on this latest edition of the National Security Podcast. But make sure to head to our Spotify to catch up on all of the past editions of this podcast, where you can hear all of the expert analysts on some of the pressing security challenges facing Israel today. For now, as always, I'm Nicole Zedeck, and thank you so much for listening.